Hello everybody and welcome to another hobby cheating video, and today it's time to enter the Wasteland. Let's get into it.
The strict technomancer that is Vincey V. Let us get to the technique and learn it, Vincey V.
Mindwork Games reached out to me because they have a new project on gamefound. That is Paradise, which is their sort of wastepunk board game miniature skirmish game. And the campaign starts on June 18th. You can find all of the details about it down below. But they sent me some of the miniatures to it, and they're all great. A lot of them are versions of some of the larger scale Paradise line minis we've seen before, a couple of which you've actually already seen on this channel. Because I love Mindwork figures and more or less everything they've ever made. They are some of my favorite figures to paint. They've always been more of a display-focused company, but now they're joining us in the gaming space, and I was happy to partner with them to help them come on in. They were nice enough to also send me a new line of heavy body acrylic paints with that will also be launching at the same time. So I thought, why not paint up one of their new Wasteland warriors with the new paints? So let's head over to the desk and let's get painting. Alright, so as you can see here, she's got a nice little simple Zenithal Prime. This is, again, you may notice if you're familiar with the larger scale Paradise range, they existed in both 54mm and busts. Then some of these characters might look familiar to you. And so I gave her a nice little simple Zenithal, black, and then with a sort of yellow from one side. This is going to be a very desertish character. You know, we're in the Wasteland here, so I didn't want to go full bright white. I wanted things to be more warm, as that's going to be part of what we do as we go forward with this project. So that's how she's all set up, and you know that helps me find the detail, and we're good to go. With that, though, we got to get these paints ready. Now, I'm not sure I'm going to actually use every one of these in the paint job, but nonetheless, let's get them all on the palette so you can see what they look like. So here's all of the paints laid out. This is both the base set and the expansion set. These are quite traditional heavy body acrylics. They list the pigments that are used, whether they are single or multiple pigments. They will list that out. They also, like most artist heavy body acrylics, also list things like the opacity and other key information. So when you're working with them, that is information you're going to want to pay attention to. Know, sort of the pigments can help guide you as to what's going to mix well with what. And the opacity indicator is going to give you sort of a good indication of whether this is going to work well as a base, as a glaze, how much you need to thin it, and so on to achieve the sort of coverage that you want in any given situation. Okay, with the paints laid out, let's start painting. We're going to start with the skin. Now, obviously, there's no skin tone in this set, but we don't need skin tone around here. I've done a video before on mixing skin tones. You can check that out linked up above. But so what we're going to do is we're going to take some of the red, mix it with some yellow ochre, get ourselves a nice orange color, and then mix that with some white. That gives us a very nice base skin tone. Now, I'm actually going to start here very, very, very pale. I'm going to work this skin tone in the reverse to how you've often seen me do it before. I'm going to start with basically the brightest skin tone, and then with the heavy body acrylics, shade it down on the sides. So that's what I do. We just get this nice, very vivid, very bright skin tone over everything on the model that's skin. Once it's there, I then begin wheeling back, and to do that, I basically bring more and more and more orange into the mix, as well as more and more and more red into the mix. So I take that skin and branch it off, making both a tanned version for my midtone, as well as a red-infused version for my shadows. And so in that way, what I then do is work it down into a nice thin glaze, and you can see how what I do then is glaze the colors in off of the highlights. This is sort of an interesting way to paint, especially with these heavy body acrylics that thin into glazes very well. One of the things I noticed with the Mindwork paints is that they are giving you a lot of the pure pigments. Now with artist paints, one of the things you have to be aware of is that a lot of them are semi-transparent or transparent. That's just the way the pigments mix. With a lot of our hobby brands, what will happen is you'll get that color and it won't be a pure version of that color because there's other things put in, usually whites or grays or something like that, to help increase the opacity. Not always true, but it's often the case. Here, because we're dealing with artists' heavy bodies, so a lot of our color range is more naturally transparent, we can work in this methodology where we're just shading it down using the natural transparency to our advantage. And we can continue to do that as we go forward on some of these later layers. Okay, so now you can see I've got the skin all nicely worked in. We're good to go. We've got some, red in the cheeks. We've got some tan off of there. She's got a nice highlight, but she looks sun-kissed all the same. Next up, we're going to do her hair. Now I do, by the way, off camera, handle a few little small details like her lips and eyes. They're really so small. It's not something I can do easily on camera, so I handle those off camera. Anyways, her hair. So here I mix a little bit of my dark blue and black, and I'm going to basically hit the side of her head, which is shaved down. But it's still got hair on it, like there's still texture there. So the skin should be somewhat visible. What I'm going to do, you'll see me do here, is I basically start by laying it down nice and dark. Because the black has a high opacity, I actually get some pretty decent coverage out of this, even thin. You'll notice I do it, though, in a little bit of a stipply type fashion. What I then do is start working in the skin tone into my mix. So I go to my previous skin tone I just used and start stippling that around the top of the skull where the light would be reflecting through the very close cropped hair. I then begin playing with my mixes and glazes, all applied through a stabby stipply technique to make sure that what I get is a nice transition from where you can see the skin through the very short hair down into where it would be in shadow and you would just see the hair itself. So that's a really nice way to do that short cropped hair. It's actually very easy to do this, and it really does sell incredibly look like the effect of someone where, in the sun or in the light, you can see that skin shining through their very short hair. Believe me, I know very well about skin showing through thin hair. And also then on the sides, create that more realistic transition into the shadow where the hair would be the dominant fixture. Okay, that leaves us with her mohawk. Here we're going to use a little bit of the magenta and pink color, as well as the more kind of turquoise color. We're going to give her basically a cool synthwave mohawk because, yeah, of course we are. Of course. So anyways, I go ahead and I'm going to start with the pink up front. I just go ahead and hit some of that magenta in there. I then start integrating the pink, and then for the little touches on the end, just a little bit of the white to get those very thin lines. It's not a lot of hair, so it's very easy. We're just building up some simple lines to create that effect. I do then mix a little bit of the purple into the magenta to shadow the very bottom. My next step is to then repeat the same process with the turquoise. Here I, sort of turn all the hair turquoise and then mix in this case, some of the lighter blue that's here, as well as then eventually a touch of the white to just, again, applied through very sharp, thin lines to then get the hair knocked all the way up and create the effect of the light on the top of the mohawk, which is kind of sweeping to her right side. One of the nice parts about heavy body acrylics is that they are very, very thinnable and they can still retain a lot of their impact. A note on this as we're working through this, I do have some drops of water and flow improver on my palette that I'm using to create my mixes. These heavy body acrylics, like all heavy body acrylics, are thick artist heavy body acrylics. They are not meant to go really directly on the figure, especially not with our very soft watercolor brushes. So if you're going to use them, you need to thin them down, and things like flow improver can help get you in the mix where they will behave more like traditional miniature paints, especially for small areas. Okay, so next up we're going to tackle the pants. Here, very simple, I'm going to take the black, mix with some yellow ochre, to get the light color to turn it gray at the top of her hip where it's kind of contrapposto and it's pointed up in the air. And we're going to just go ahead and apply that. I make a nice little spread. I'm relying on the transparency and allowing some of that underlying yellow to also shine through to give me the light color. But really that's all I do. You can see here how I just apply one coat of the lighter color and then slowly glaze in some of the darker black on the opposite sides of her legs, down in the shadow and in the hidden recesses. All in all, it's the pants. It's not the most interesting part of the figure. It's in a neutral tone. We don't need to go super crazy. I do eventually work in just a tiny amount of the white into my yellow mixture to create the very top highlight there, just to give that impression of a little more neutral gray, yellow at the very highlight of the top of her hip, under right by where her belt is. But all in all, the pants are pretty straightforward. Things like this is my recommendation, especially on the lower part of the figure. Things like pants, you don't need to overinvest in that, right? We're not trying to, if you're painting for like Golden Demon or something, great, go nuts, spend a long time on it. When you're painting for fun like this, and you know, to get like some skirmish models on the table, this will do you well. So at any rate, next up, we're going to do her top, which I want to do in red, which is going to be my pop color around the miniature. There'll be a couple other places I hide it later on, but for the main focal area is going to be her top. So what I do is I take the red, mix it in with a little bit of the dark brown to get a nice muted color. So this is the transparent raw umber going in with the pyro red, and I just apply an all over base coat of that. What I then do is start bringing in more and more and more and more of the red as I highlight up the top of her breasts, sort of that upward facing plane, to bring that into full light. Now here I didn't go super far, but you could. You could always then integrate some of the yellow if you want to bring it up even more. I didn't want her to be too extreme, as I figured the colors were kind of like faded, and this was going to be the most extreme part of it. But you decide your level of highlights and the environment you're in. Once I'm here and I've got that nice popped red, I do just then glaze some of the original brown to bring everything back together. Okay, a few things, by the way, I touch up off camera with figures like this that are very small and very detailed. Like this is a pretty standard 28-32 mil figure, and the detail level on these figs is very high. So one of the things that's really important is to kind of like drop occlusion shadows in between the belts, buckles, and differing elements. So I do kind of off camera, and you may occasionally see me do it on camera in between other steps, thin down some of the black and just do like thin lines around some of these separated elements. So in between the boots and the pants, or in between the belt and the pants, and so on. That's what's called an occlusion shadow. When we have those nice dark lines, it just makes our paint job look more clean. And it really is a huge thing you can do that does not take a lot of time, that makes your figure look so much better. Okay, so next up we're going to tackle all of those belts. And here it's pretty simple. We have a nice brown color. I mix it with just a little bit of black to get a nice deep tone. I do want this to be dark and in contrast to the other things, but don't worry, we'll bring in the light later. And I just apply a nice brown base coat to all of the different belts and stuff. So there you go, easy enough. Now, staying consistent with the rest of my highlights, I bring in some of that yellow ochre, and that's going to be my highlight tone with this. So I start mixing yellow ochre into my belt color and then apply it on the edges, do some occasional little hashing and scratching, stuff like that, to just pick out the edges of those belts. They're very small, but we need to make sure we're still catching that edge highlight and give them some amount of variance. No big deal. I mix a second color of this brown with a lot more yellow, and that's what I do for like the the little bags on her hips as well as the boots, to kind of make them a lighter brown or sandier color. So you can use the same mixtures of paints, just in different ratios, to get completely different colors on the miniature. I don't need to get a new paint involved. And that's often the key with these heavy bodies when you're going to be heavily mixing. Just remember to be playing with the mixes in different ratios, and you can really achieve a lot. Okay, with those little lines and hashes and everything knocked into the belts, they're good to go. There's one major big area left, and that is the non-metallic metal. So here I'm going to start with some of the turquoise color, and again I will mix it with some of the black to get a nice base blue infused steel. I want this to be the complement, the contrast to the warm yellows that are everywhere else along with her hair. So we're going to use a little bit of that like blue and yellow pop here. Okay, so I start by just applying a base coat of this very dark turquoise, effectively, to all of the metal things. So her knee pads, her shoulder, her cyber arm, all of that kind of stuff. Now, from this point on, what I'm going to then do is just start integrating some of the titanium white into this mixture, just slowly, slowly, slowly stepping it up, adding more and more and more, until I get to eventually pure white for the very small dot specular highlights. So really my goal here is very simple. You can see how I'm working it up. I'm going to focus mainly on her arm in the video. It's a nice column, a nice circular surface. If you want to see more about all things non-metallic metal, I did do the ultimate guide to non-metallic metal. If you want to watch that, it's linked up there. And so you can check that out. I do very similar colors in that one. But I basically just build up until I get those nice, bright, poppin' white, small specular highlights on the metal. And with that in place, more or less she's good to go. Off camera, I cleaned up a couple of small things, like I turned a couple of other little small elements red, you know, just a little couple details and little things that are hard to get because they were so tiny, finished up her eyes, all of that kind of stuff. At any rate, here she is. I think she turned out pretty cool. I will say, these Paradise figures for this for the new game are really neat. Like, I like this aesthetic. It's a bunch of ass-kicking, like, Mad Max ladies. Like, that's pretty awesome. So the figures are really cool. I'm excited to paint more of them. I have another one primed up that's, again, based on one of their earlier larger scale sculpts. So if you really like these and you also want the display models, don't forget you can also go to Mindwork and find a lot of these. Their site and everything is linked down below. Don't forget the GameFound project starts on the 18th. So do give that a check out. That's linked down there. You can follow it now so you get notified when everything kicks off. So it'll be about 4 days from now after you're watching this, assuming you're watching it on the day it comes out. And I'm really excited. The paints were fun to work with. I'll be honest, I'm not normally a heavy body acrylics man except for like very specific purposes, but it was really interesting to challenge myself to work completely in them. It's often good to operate a little outside of your comfort zone. In the end, I like thick paints, but maybe not that thick. And I'm probably a little more comfortable with miniature paints that I've used a lot. But I'm sure these will enter into my rotation. There are some colors in here I really like. The red is really nice and intense, and I always love good reds. As well, I really like their turquoise tone. I think that's great. So, as well as, by the way, the magenta, which just came out beautiful. I mean, if you saw, I only used it a little bit on the hair, but it is a really rich, gorgeous, beautiful magenta. So, you know, check the paints out as well if anything here grabs you. I want to say thank you to Mindwork for giving me a chance to paint this up. I do hope you'll check out their project. But if you liked this video, give it a like. Subscribe. We have new hobby cheating here every Saturday. If you've got any questions about anything I did in the video, drop them down in the comments below. I always answer every question asked. If you want to support the channel and help us keep making videos, there's lots of ways you can do so. There is, of course, our affiliate links, which don't cost you anything extra. In fact, they often save you money to pick up all your hobby supplies, and they're a great way to support the channel. There's the games that Uncle Adam and I make. If you're looking for your newest skirmish obsession, our newest game, Rain in Iron, is out now. So if you're looking for some demon on robot battles in post-apocalyptic Earth, well, hey, check it out. Also, of course, there's our Patreon, focused on review and feedback and taking your next step on your hobby journey. Thank you so much for watching this one, though. I really do appreciate it. As always, we'll see you next time.